Welcome to the JQA Treatment, the podcast where we take a deep dive into the legacies of key figures within a president's cabinet, evaluating their triumphs, failures, and lasting impact on American history. I'm Jeffrey Moushes, and this is episode 1, The Diplomatic Titan. In this episode, we explore a man who might just be the most successful Secretary of State in American history, John Quincy Adams, the namesake for this podcast. We often associate him with his later presidency, a term marred by political infighting and stagnation, but before the White House, Adams built a career that set the stage for America's rise as a global power. So today, we focus on his diplomatic genius, major achievements, and even his missteps as Secretary of State under President James Monroe. If we were to make a Mount Rushmore for Secretaries of State, John Quincy Adams would be front and center. Before he even stepped into Monroe's cabinet in 1817, he had already built an impressive reputation, serving as a minister to the Netherlands, Prussia, Russia, and Britain. But his crowning moment as Secretary of State came in 1819 with one of the greatest land acquisitions in American history, the Adams-Onis Treaty. This treaty, negotiated between the U.S. and Spain, secured Florida for the United States. Spain was weakened by revolutions in Latin America, and it couldn't maintain its hold on the region. And Adams masterfully leveraged U.S. military pressure, especially Andrew Jackson's invasion of Spanish Florida, to force a deal. This wasn't just a land grab, it established clear U.S. borders in the West, resolving disputes over Texas and setting the foundations for future expansion. Imagine America today without Florida. Spring break would look a lot different. While Adams was busy negotiating the Adams-Onis Treaty with Spain, things took an unexpected turn when General Andrew Jackson, without authorization, invaded Spanish Florida in 1818. Jackson's forces captured forts, executed 2 British citizens, and toppled the Spanish government in Pensacola, all without explicit orders from President Monroe. This put the U.S. government in a tough position. Some members of Monroe's cabinet, including Secretary of War John C. Calhoun, wanted Jackson to be punished for overstepping his authority, but Adams saw an opportunity. Instead of condemning Jackson, he used the invasion as leverage against Spain. Part of Adams's genius move was he turned Jackson's aggression into a negotiating tool, forcing Spain to concede Florida, arguing that if Spain couldn't control the region, the U.S. would take responsibility. In Jackson's reaction to this, he saw Adams's diplomatic approach as a political salve move, but he never forgave the behind-the-scenes criticism. And Jackson suspected that Adams, like others in Monroe's cabinet, had almost thrown him under the bus. In Adams's letter defending Jackson's actions, he wrote, "Whatever irregularities may have attended the conduct of General Jackson, the fault is not his, but Spain's, which has failed in performing its duties of protection in the Floridas." Adams had Jackson's back this time, but that wouldn't last. This moment planted the seeds of a rivalry that would explode just a few years later. John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson's rivalry is one of the most bitter feuds in American history, but their first real clash actually happened while Adams was Secretary of State, long before the election of 1824, and it turned them into full-blown enemies. Though President Monroe delivered the famous Monroe Doctrine, it was Adams who wrote it. At its core, the doctrine warned European powers that the Western Hemisphere was off limits for future colonization. This doctrine shaped U.S. foreign policy for nearly 2 centuries, serving as a warning to Europe and a statement of American strength. Adams understood diplomacy as a long game. He wasn't looking for short-term wins, but rather a framework for American dominance in the future. He says, "The American continents, by the free and independent condition which they have assumed and maintained, are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers. We owe it, therefore, to candor and to amicable relations existing between the United States and those powers, to declare that we should consider any attempt on their part to extend their system to any portion of this hemisphere as dangerous to our peace and safety." While Monroe's name is on it, the Monroe Doctrine was pure JQA. He laid the groundwork for America to emerge as a dominant force in the Western Hemisphere. Of course, no statesman, no matter how brilliant, is without his setbacks. Adams had some key failures as Secretary of State, partially the struggle with Latin America. While he backed independence movements, he failed to fully recognize new Latin American republics early enough. His reluctance led to tensions, and some of those nations questioned U.S. intentions. It was also the case of the Missouri Compromise in 1820. Adams privately opposed slavery, but as Secretary of State, he didn't push the issue publicly. Some historians criticize him for not using his influence more forcefully against the spread of slavery. Most presidents fade into retirement after leaving office, but John Quincy Adams was not one of them. In fact, his post-presidency was arguably more impactful than his time in the White House. And guess what? His rival with Andrew Jackson did not die. It only got nastier. After Adams' controversial 1824 victory, when he won the presidency through what Jackson called a corrupt bargain with Henry Clay, Jackson spent 4 years plotting revenge. In 1828, Jackson crushed Adams in a landslide, and his supporters smeared Adams relentlessly during the campaign, accusing him of everything from elitism to pimping out an American girl to a Russian czar. Adams refused to attend Jackson's inauguration, the first president to boycott his successor's swearing in. Their feud had turned personal. Rather than fade into obscurity, JQA did the unthinkable. He ran for Congress and won. He became a fierce critic of Jackson's presidency, attacking his policies on Indian removal, executive overreach, and the spoils system. Adams was nicknamed Old Man Eloquent for his fiery speeches, particularly against slavery. He famously defended enslaved Africans in the Amistad case in 1841, securing their freedom in the Supreme Court. Jackson, long retired, never stopped resenting Adams. In 1843, when both men were aging statesmen, a visitor to Jackson's home mentioned that Adams had opposed a controversial Texas annexation plan. Jackson, still furious, reportedly shouted, "That man, sir, made a fool of me once, but he shall not make a fool of me again." Even in their final years, the grudge had never died. John Quincy Adams was one of the few presidents who outshined his own presidency. His rivalry with Jackson was much about ideology as it was personal vengeance. But in the end, Adams left a legacy as a diplomatic mastermind, an anti-slavery warrior, and a statesman who never backed down. Even in death, he remained uncompromising. His last words? "This is the last of earth. I am content." So where does Adams rank among all-time great cabinet members? He was a brilliant negotiator, an architect of American expansion, and a master of diplomacy. His work as Secretary of State overshadowed his presidency, and that's saying something. When we talk about the JQA treatment, we're talking about how key figures within a president's cabinet can shape history in ways that go beyond their time in office. John Quincy Adams left a permanent stamp on American foreign policy and expansion. So, was he the best Secretary of State in history? You decide. But JQA wasn't the only cabinet member to leave a lasting mark on America. Next time on the JQA treatment, we turn our attention to Albert Gallatin, Thomas Jefferson's brilliant but often overlooked Secretary of the Treasury. Gallatin wasn't just a numbers guy. He slashed the national debt, funded the Louisiana Purchase, and helped shape the country's financial future in ways that are still felt today. But was his vision too ambitious? Did his fight against federal power cost him politically? And how does he compare to the likes of Alexander Hamilton? Join us next time as we give Albert Gallatin the JQA treatment. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review. And until next time, stay curious and keep questioning history.